Welcome back. Former Clinton campaign lawyer Michael Sussmann may take the stand in his own defense today in the Durham probe, but only under certain conditions, he says. His lawyers are asking the judge to keep the government from asking questions related to pre-indictment negotiations. Sussmann faces charges of lying to the FBI. Joining me right now is the Newsweek opinion editor and the Josh Hammer Show host, Josh Hammer. Josh, great to have you today. Thanks very much for being here. What do you make of these demands that Sussmann is making, that he doesn't want any questions before the indictment?
Maria, great to be with you. So, look, it's obviously a show of some mild trepidation, to put it mildly, from Sean Berkowitz, who's Michael Sussmann's lawyer in this case. But look, the question that I have, and I think a lot of other Americans have, is will we finally get some semblance of justice for the wrong actions that happened as a result of the FBI's wrong and terrible Crossfire Hurricane investigation going all the way back to the 2016 campaign? You know, at Newsweek.com, where I run the op-ed section, Maria, we have a great op-ed up today from my friend Ben Weingart, and I would encourage the viewers here to check it out. And some of the things that Ben talks about in his column here, he shows that the judge in this case, Judge Christopher Cooper, who, by the way, is a Barack Obama nominee, he actually was Clinton DOJ colleagues with Michael Sussmann. Judge Cooper has referred to Michael Sussmann as a, quote, professional acquaintance. Judge Cooper's wife, Amy Jeffers, by the way, donated $2,700 to Hillary Clinton going back in the 2016 campaign. Amy Jeffers actually served in the Obama DOJ. She formerly represented Lisa Page, the disgraced attorney from the FBI probe. So I think what a lot of people are wondering is, are we finally going to get some sense of justice from this case? A lot of times it looks like there are obviously two rules. There's one set of rules for the Clinton world, the D.C. swamp world, and one set of rules for deplorables. We'll find out soon, though.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying Newsweek and the Newsweek opinion, so thank you for that. I'm glad that you promoted the publication, but I want to get your take broadly what we're learning here, because while Michael Sussmann is being charged with lying to the FBI, you and I both know the bigger story here is John Durham putting the pieces in place to actually get that accountability so that the world can understand specifically what happened. And as it relates specifically to the FBI, I am not buying the fact that there's suggestions that Michael Sussmann duped the FBI. The FBI's investigation of Donald Trump was in place, and they knew that the dossier was fake. They knew that the Alpha Bank story was not true, and yet they still pursued FISA warrants on Trump officials. So the FBI is really the focus that I'd like to see. Will John Durham put FBI people on the stand again in the coming weeks? Where does this go now?
So it's obviously an open question, right? I mean, I think all along, Republicans, Trump supporters, people who really just want to see justice under the law have been kind of praying that John Durham, you know, has one hand behind his back and he's going to at the last second unveil maybe some sort of sealed indictment, that there is something that is still forthcoming in this case. I really don't know, Maria. I mean, your guess at this point is as good as mine. Michael Sussmann is obviously a good place to start. At the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, when you think back to kind of the long and sorry tale of what happened going all the way back to the summer of 2016, through, of course, the Mueller investigation, Michael Sussmann is ultimately a fairly small fish in this greater, terrible plot story.
Right.
He is an important data point. I mean, it is symbolic, of course, okay? It is symbolic, and it is meaningful that we might get some justice. But at the end of the day, any kind of meaningful justice will happen probably at this point beyond the Durham probe, okay? So after Republicans probably retake Congress, both the House and the Senate, you know, is what it looks like this fall. Come January 2023, what we'll probably see is mass use of the subpoena power to try to get to the bottom of this. That is probably, at this point, a better chance. I'm sorry to have to say it. It's probably a better chance to get meaningful justice and get to the root of all of this sordid affairs than the Durham probe. But look, I could be wrong. Hopefully John Durham has a little more up his sleeve.
Yeah, and all of those congressmen who misled or lied to us, like Adam Schiff, going on every TV show telling us that collusion with Trump was in plain sight. No, it wasn't. Not at all. And I reported that at the time. And where's the accountability for him, the way he spoke and misled the American people? But you mentioned the Republicans taking over in November. There are Republican members of the House Oversight Committee right now sending letters to several banks and the Treasury Department. They want more information question about Hunter Biden and his associates' financial records, Josh. The move is, of course, laying the groundwork for a continuation of a probe into Hunter Biden's influence peddling. What are you expecting here?
So there's really not a whole lot, legally speaking, that Republicans can do while they're in the minority. But as you said, Maria, what they're trying to do right now is that they're just trying to set the table for their possibly and, probably likely taking over both the House and the Senate come January 2023, in which case, when Republicans are in the minority, vis-a-vis the White House, they don't control the White House. But if they control the Senate, there aren't a whole lot of things you can do, but mass effective use of the subpoena power is one of the most effective and powerful tools in the congressional arsenal. So whether it's kind of the Hillary email scandal, whether it's obviously Crossfire Hurricane and Russiagate and Spygate, or whether it's Hunter Biden and his infamous laptop from hell, that is what Republicans probably should spend the next 2 years doing, is using the subpoena power to call people to the stand, whether it's Hunter Biden, whether it's people in Clinton world, to get to the bottom of these various scandals there. And this is not just good politics. It's also very important, obviously, because, look, for 4 years, Democrats over and over again, whether it was the emoluments clause and all this other kind of complete horse crap that they found in kind of the penumbras, the emanation of the Constitution, and they tried to apply to President Trump. That was all nonsense. But what is going on here with Hunter Biden is real. And we also know, by the way, Maria, 15 to 20% of people said that if they had known all the details of the Hunter Biden story before they cast their vote for Joe Biden in 2020, they would have flipped their vote. So this literally possibly flipped an election as well. It is deeply important to get to the bottom of it.
Well, now we're feeling the effects of when somebody is compromised. You've got the commander-in-chief potentially compromised when it comes to our leading adversary, the Chinese Communist Party. So we've got a question. Are the decisions the right decisions, or do they have something on Joe Biden because of the money the family took in? You've hit it spot on, Josh. Thanks very much for weighing in this morning, and we will see you and read you in Newsweek. Josh, joining us this morning. We'll see you soon.